Hey everybody, we're Pin and Pull DFS. I'm Ricky. Keaton's not here this week, so it's just me. But we're talking about the longest race, and hopefully this will not be the longest video. Coke 600 week in Charlotte, actually our home track as far as distance goes. We'll not be actually going out there, but it's excited to have it right in our backyards for a week. So, as usual, no weekly show beer this week. I'm drinking Mountain Dew because it is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And actually, this is again Saturday, so post qualifying. We've already ran through all the statistics from there. We'll talk about that. I'm actually watching the Xfinity race right now, so if I do any huge reactions, that's why. But yeah, so we're just going to run through everything and kind of give you a rundown on what at least I'm thinking on strategy and go from there. Last week's results, as usual, Keaton used my strategy and did it way better. So that's, as we talk about every week, if you haven't watched this before, Keaton is quickly picking up on me as far as knowledge goes, but a lot of his success has been from the pure understanding how DFS works and that type of thing that I'm slowly getting better at. But the analysis side, that's where I come in, and that's why Keaton finished third again in the 10,000 grand to win challenge. And so since he's not here, I can take all the credit for it. It was basically all me, even though I also had lineups in the same one and did not win, or did not finish third. So we'll say it's all me and then go from there. To the scoring, as usual, 2 ways to score: lap base, finish base. Lap base, laps led, fastest lap. Finish base, points for base time you finish, 45 for first, 1 for 40th, even though there's only 38 cars, so I guess 3 for 30 for last. And then position differential based on your starting position, and that's why it's so important that we do this post-qualifying and why we waited to do it until now instead of putting it out on Thursday like we normally do right after the prices are released. So one thing to note here is it's the longest race of the year, and let me tell you, it is a long one. If you ever go to the race, it is so long to sit in the stands, and because it's in Charlotte in almost summer, it's so hot. But that being said, it's not as bad from home. So, but 400 laps means the gunner is really, really important. But not only that, there's 4 stages, 400 lap stages, and beyond that, you get a lot of variety from day to night. So it starts in the day, ends in the night. So while there's 400 total laps to be possibly led, it's not necessarily that somebody's going to lead 300 of those. Sometimes they do. I think Truex in 2016 just dominated. But like last year, we see Bowman led 164 laps and didn't win, but did lead a lot of laps. And then there's a lot of other people, 87 for Truex, 38 for Elliott. So there's definitely variety there, and I think that's why it's advantageous to play more gunners this week, on the 3 side. And honestly, with some of how the pricing's set up for some of the people that I think are going to be potential gunners, it actually may be even possible to do 4. I don't love the low end this week, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I think it's going to be really hard to build any lineup without 3 gunners and have success. And just going back, piggybacking off of that, we look at the fastest lap from last year, and literally it's pretty evenly distributed. You have 3 people with over 50, 6 with over 20. So you're getting, a good smattering of different people getting the different fastest laps. And so, it's important to get 2 or 3 of these people, right? But not necessarily, you don't have to necessarily worry about maybe Kyle Larson leading 270 laps. Though he may, and honestly, I think it's going to be hard not to pick against, even though he is the most expensive driver this week. But as you see, more laps, more fastest laps. But like I said down here at the very bottom, more evenly distributed, so you're not getting as much one person with 100 hundreds of fastest laps, probably. And then going into finishing position, we'll talk about that when we're talking about who can win, who can finish well, that type of thing. But just the rundown, like I said, there's only 38 cars this week, so you automatically get 3. Yay. And then position differential, starting position minus finishing position, we'll talk about a lot. Qualifying matters a lot. And it also gives us a little bit of opportunity. I think a lot of the really, really good cars did qualify towards the front, so it's not dissimilar to the weeks where, there's not been qualifying. But I think there's a little bit more variety in that some people didn't qualify as well. Some people were set up more so for, maybe like are going to be better racing. I think that'll be something to keep an eye on. And with it being a really long race, the people who are good early aren't always the people that are good late. So it's just something to keep an eye on when you're building your lineups, is how to incorporate all of that. So, as I said, Charlotte Motor Speedway is in Concord, North Carolina. So again, like we've talked about time again, not actually in Charlotte, as most places aren't. This one's pretty close. I actually put it from my house, 17.6 miles. So right at about 15 miles from like proper uptown Charlotte. And it is known as one of the crown jewels back in the day. The 4 crown jewels. This was the longest race. So it used to be the World 600. Now it is the Coca-Cola 600. You're going to get, it's a mile and a half. It's going to be very similar to all the other mile and a halves. And, I don't think there's going to be a ton of surprise here. There's a couple guys who do run a little bit better here than other places. I know Stenthouse, who actually qualified second, is somebody who has finished top 5 two or three of the last 5. I think it's 2 out of the last 5 Coke 600s. So he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on, but his high starting position may scare people away, which may be either good for ownership or just scare you away, period, which I think is completely fair. But yeah, beyond that, I think that it's definitely a race that people want to win. It's definitely a race that people put a lot of stock into. Most teams are in the Charlotte area, and just miles from the track, shorter, even less than I am. And it's something that people want to win. People put a lot into it. So something to keep an eye on. And then as I said, my selection strategy this week, I think 3 gunners seems to be the play. It's not going to be anything. I don't think it's anything crazy as far as build wise goes. I think the low end is not as ripe, but the middle is pretty juicy, which we'll see when we go through that. And qualifying fast reacts. The Hendrick cars are real fast. Larson on the pole. Chase Elliott top 5 or 3rd. Byron 4th. Stenthouse is driving a Hendrick motor. Bowman 7th. Really, really good. I was impressed by the speed that Harvick had. Beyond that, I don't think there was anything that was too surprising on my end. But we'll walk through as we see people. There is a little bit of opportunity to get some position differential upside and going from there. So, favorites to win. The favorites are, I don't know how Kyle Larson's not higher. I imagine that as we get closer and closer to, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you already couldn't find this betting odds right here. But 17-2 is pretty ridiculous, honestly. It's just a bunch of people with like really low odds, in fairness. But just something to keep an eye on if you are a betting person. But they really also like Truex, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, who has been very good at mile and a halves and has been a lot better than people have been giving him credit for this year. I think because he hasn't like dominated races in a very Kyle Busch fashion, that they've kind of been writing him off, much in the same way that like just having a down year like Harvick or whatever. But you look at the stats and that isn't necessarily backed up. And Kyle Busch is always a threat. But yeah, so, and then the additional odds to win, Byron and Bowman, I think at 18-1, 16-1 are really nice odds. I also like their prices this week, which we'll talk about later. And then Tyler Reddick, who is somebody who is good in practice, qualified okay, like I think 15th, and is pretty cheap, but also 40-1 odds would be a nice little return. But I think Larson's probably going to be the guy. I don't know. I think it's going to be a Hendrick guy. I have a hard time believing it's not going to be a Hendrick driver, and just going from there. I will probably have more Bowman Byron because of their price tag, and I think they're similar plays to Elliott and Larson. I think you're paying for. I mean, I know Larson's been so good, but I think you're still paying for kind of a name premium with the way that William Byron and the way that and Alex is driven. Is that you're really like that extra $1,000 for Chase, that $1,300 from Byron to Chase is all name recognition, and I would much rather have. I would much rather have Byron at 92. If the roles were flipped, I'd probably be saying the same thing about Chase, right? I'd rather have Chase at 9,200, and Byron starting fourth, Chase is starting third. So basically, position differential side, they're the same, not much upside. But as far as like being able to get out and dominate the race, we've seen. I mean, Byron has just been so good this year. I can't talk enough about how good William Byron is. But and then Bowman's the same way. I think also they allow you to make some builds that are, true three-gunner builds, but don't have that like heavy top, low bottom type appeal. So they would probably, like, honestly, like, I think they would probably be in my. They are in my gunners that I talk about later. Like, as far as like my top gunners, to where like if I was only building 1 or 3 lineups, they would be there. So looking at practice yesterday, because we get practice, I think it's something good to know. Fastest lap may not be the most indicative. I know Austin Dillon had the fastest lap, and Austin Dillon's been really good here before. He's won a Coke 600 before, and I've talked about how much I really like Reddick as well. And so, like, that's definitely something to keep an eye on because he was very fast. But beyond that, I think that the 10-lap average is a really good one to get. 20. If you look at 20, you can look at 20, and maybe that's a little bit more indicative. But it's hard to get as many people to run 20 laps in practice because 10 consecutive laps or 20 consecutive laps. As you can see here, only 26 drivers did that. But the ones at the top are the exact ones we expect. Larson, Byron, Reddick, Stenhouse, Suarez, who is somebody who I'm not sure I'm going to be playing a lot of in DFS because he's starting 9th, but is somebody that, I mean, just the way he's been running, I'm not unsure that even starting 9th that he's not a good play. I've been really impressed by the way that he has grown as a driver, and also that the new Trackhouse team has been able to perform. So I just wanted to pull up the qualifying just to make sure I get everything right as we go through. But yeah, so Austin Dillon starting 6th, so it doesn't give you as much position differential upside as Reddick that we talked about. And Reddick, as you see, was 3rd and fastest. Beyond this, I don't think there's anything too surprising in this. Brad's fastest is kind of surprising, I guess, down there in 18th. I think he'll probably be faster in the race. He did win last year. Wasn't necessarily the best car, but winning is important. And outside of that, I don't think there's too much surprise here. I think there's some good takeaways. I think somebody like Newman up in 14th, who qualified in the 20s, is somebody who you could definitely make an argument for being a really good play. And he's starting 25th. So I think definitely is somebody that could have potential, as well as Matt DiBenedetto, who's 11th, and then he's starting 21st. So definitely some guys to look at. Maybe that you use this as a quasi for when you're looking at potential position differential. That's a full mouthful, but just something to keep an eye on as we go. And then now that since we were doing this post qualifying, we can go back to normal where we look at the driver's average finish here and their starting position and give them an average points or average lap base points side, so finish and position differential. And when you do that, the person at the very top is Kyle Busch. I think And honestly, if you look at the mile, which we don't have in it, but if you look at the mile and a half tracks, Kyle Busch's average finish is even higher. But with an average finish of ninth, starting 20th, Kyle Busch at 46 points is the highest. Almirola, who I will keep putting in my lineup every week until he finishes well, because I think he will at some point, even though he kills me every week. But that being said, even with an average finish of 15th is up there. So, and I think he is somebody who could definitely get into the top 10 and run really well. But I've said that every week, so no one's surprised by that. Truex is somebody who, starting P8, has a little bit of position differential opportunity. There's been races in the past at Charlotte where he has just dominated. There's been races this year that he's just dominated. So I think it's definitely feasible that you would put him in. Keselowski, who we just talked about a minute ago as well, was a little bit lower in the 10-lap average in practice. Only qualified 13th, so maybe the distraction with all the is he going to Roush next year, that type of thing is getting in. I don't know, but he's also a little bit on the cheaper side compared to some of the other drivers at only 9,700, and so I will probably still have quite a bit of them. Maybe some of those triple gunner builds that I was talking about with like Keselowski, Bowman, Byron, and you're able to spend a lot more on the lower end guys. Chase, again, I think speaks for himself. I think at some point, at one of these weeks at a mile and a half, he's going to pop off. We've seen it from Larson, we've seen it from Byron, we've seen it from Bowman. That there's weeks where they're going to pop off, and Chase's hasn't happened yet. Obviously, he won last week at a road course, but hasn't had that at a mile and a half yet. I think it's definitely coming. I don't know when, but I think it's hard. I think it's hard not to play him. But like I said, I would prefer Byron or Bowman. That's just me. They're substantially cheaper. Then Joe Logano is somebody to keep an eye on. He's not ran great lately, but his price is creeping down so much, and he has position differential this week. I think it's pretty hard to keep him out of your player pool. I probably wouldn't have him in the smaller leagues where you only have or one or two or three entries. I don't think I'd probably have him too much, but in like bigger leagues, like Keaton plays the 150 entry max, I think I would definitely have a smattering of him because he's definitely could get into the top 5 and run real well. Just to note, the rest of the top 10, Reddick, Custer, Buescher were the 3 that really popped out at me because they are value, quote unquote. I mean, Reddick's I think 8,200. They're not cheap, but like they're definitely people who are going to be on my next slide for value, but are also in the top 10 for predicted finish or for predicted pure points side. And I think Reddick is somebody who could get up there and lead laps at some point today. We've seen him be really, really good at the beginning of races and then kind of fall off towards the end, which scares me a little bit with the really long race that we have here. But that being said, he's too good of a driver, and I think RCR is a good enough team that you're not going to have. At some point, that's going to end, and he's just going to be good the whole race. They're just going to figure it out. And then Hamlin, I think, is somebody who kind of comes in under the radar this week. Hasn't done anything too great at Charlotte, but we've talked about him ad nauseum with how well he ran early in the year. And yeah, so definitely somebody that probably not at the top of my gunner pool, but definitely in my gunner pool. And then the value points. But again, it's the exact people that I just said, right? Almirola, Buescher, Kyle Busch, Custer, who were also in the last slide. So, they give both value and also scoring opportunity. One person that I don't love, but I don't hate, I started this week, I went through my spreadsheet, and just for me, when I was building out everything, I gave people either, red for I don't want them at all, yellow, or light green, heavy green. Heavy green, obviously, I want a ton of them. And LaJoy got a yellow. He's somebody who I think starting 26th is a little bit scary. I think he's going to finish better than that. I think honestly, like we've seen him perform really, really well. And average finish to 20th. I don't think that's outside. 20th or even better is not outside of the realm of possibility. But we'll talk about there may be a couple better options. Kyle Busch, again, not surprising. Custer, not surprising. The rest of the top 10, also not surprising. Reddick, again, right there. Keselowski and Logano, the two Penske cars that we talked about. Michael McDowell is interesting because, we've talked about early in the year, he obviously won the Daytona 500, then ran well at the road course, and so those first few weeks, and even most of them since, his starting position has been a lot higher than, where you would expect that car to run. But he's actually ran really well, and he's now back into where, I think he's starting 24th, 28th. So he's kind of, he's at 24th. So, I think he's probably around the 20th place car, but, the way things fall may end up being a top 15 car. And I think he's shown that he can be a top 15 car this year. So it's just something to keep an eye on as we keep going. And then Truex, obviously. My top 5 picks, this is not in order. This is just, this is actually in price-wise order. So not necessarily my picks. I honestly think one of the Hendrick cars will be dominant. And I throw a dart. Just, toss a coin. Or I guess you'd have to have a 4-sided coin. But, it's, yeah, I don't know. I think this might be the week that Larson finally holds it off. We saw Bowman be really, really good here last year, lead a lot of laps. Obviously that would be awesome as a fan, but also he has a little bit more position differential opportunity, starting 7th instead of 1st, 3rd, and 4th of Chase, Byron, and Larson. And then obviously Willie B. I mean, the dude speaks for himself. The fact that they continue to price him sub 10 is stupid. It's just wrong. I don't really get it. I know he's been starting in the top 5 most weeks, which gives him limited position differential, but he's just shown he's too good. The Hendrick cars are too good right now, and he has been by far the most consistent. And yeah, a couple weeks ago at Dover, he literally didn't have brakes for most of the race and still finished 4th. The kick and drive. And as we talked about, here's the gunner pool. I mean, like normal, like with 150, if you're doing 150 lineups, I think you have a smattering of all of these people. Without 150 lineups, I think it does come down to Larson, Truex, Elliott, Bowman, Byron. For me, I'm probably going to have a little bit of Blaney as well. I like both Blaney and Keselowski and Logano, honestly. I'll probably have some builds with like exclusively Penske cars, those 3, because they're starting too low for how good those cars are, and so it's just definitely something to keep an eye on because maybe they just aren't running well here this week. But I would be surprised if that's true. That's just me. I think Denny is somebody who in my initial review, I don't think I really thought that I was going to have a lot of them, but then talking it through and thinking about it, honestly, like starting 14th, he gives you so much upside, and the way that he's been able to dominate some races this year, like he's creeping up there. The same with Kyle Busch. I'll probably have also maybe try to get some 3-gunner lineups with the Gibbs cars, where it's Truex, Hamlin, Kyle. But yeah, so I think it's definitely just something to keep an eye on. Any of these people could be the guy. I think it's going to be a Hendrick car. That's going to be my prediction. I think qualifying helped with that opinion, and I think just the whole season has helped with that opinion. And until they stop just dominating, I'm probably going to keep playing them a lot. And then going into like that middle price tier, I think we definitely have with some different people. Is that Kurt we talk about every week. I mean he's going to probably finish 8th to 12th, and he's starting 11th. Like I think he's definitely a legitimate play. I don't like him as much as the 3 below him. I love Tyler Reddick at 8,200. I like Custer at 8. His price keeps creeping up a little bit. But that being said, 23rd, great position differential opportunity. And the same with Almirola, who I say every week, and he has killed me every week, but it's okay. I think he's a really, really good driver. I think bad luck ends at some point, and I have already lost enough that I would like to also win some when he does get back. And then the bottom four there are interesting. I really like Austin Dillon's potential. The starting position scares me a little bit, but I think he's shown that, especially at Charlotte, he's been really good. I think he's somebody who can definitely outperform, or at least outperform that, and not lose you points on the position differential side. But maybe he's just not going to be my favorite play in this range, purely because I think other cars, like a Tyler Reddick, are going to be similar footing as far as where finishing possibility with a lot more position differential. I also like Matt DiBenedetto, as we talked about, somebody who was pretty fast in practice yesterday and probably gets thrown into my Penske build that I was just talking about. Stenhouse is somebody who is really fast, really good here, also really cheap, but is starting really high and scares the bejesus out of me. I think he's somebody who could. I'm not sure he is a guy that's going to get out and lead 100 laps plus, which I think you probably would want, but I think he's definitely somebody who could finish top 5, and those finishing points more than make up if he finishes 5th, those finishing points more than make up for that -3 that you get from position differential. Eric Jones is somebody I threw on here. I don't have strong feelings about him. I probably won't have a lot of. I think he's an okay pivot because I don't think he's going to be super high owned. And he's shown that he can run well. I don't know what his upside would be this week. Maybe 15th. Probably 14 to 17 would be my guess. Yeah, I don't love him, but I didn't dislike him enough to X him out. So like I was talking about, red, yellow, green. I think he was squarely yellow, but just definitely somebody that could be in your lineups if you're building a lot, but would not be in my single lineup or my 3 max entry lineups. Then sub 7 guys there's actually some really good opportunity this week. So Buescher starting 27. The ones I really like are, and this is basically I like these guys every week, but I like their position differential this week. Buescher, Newman, Preece. I really like. Especially Newman and Buescher. I think those 2 price tags are a little low, and that's even before they're starting 25th and 27th. So I will definitely have a lot of those and going from there. And so, I think at the end of the day, anybody here is probably not a bad play. I talked about Suarez. He is squarely in my yellow as well that I was talking about, because he is somebody who I think can finish. He's shown that he's a top 10 car, but he hasn't shown that he is a top 5 car or higher. And I think starting 9th, it's a little scary to play him. It's a little bit risky. I think there's definitely potential there, though, because I don't think that he is, necessarily. I think he's still a really, really good, a really, really good play, but I just don't think he's necessarily as good as some of the other plays. And then Briscoe, we're still waiting for him to crack into the top 10, top 15, top 10 consistently, but I think he will, and that price tag is really low. So I think he's a legitimate play. Mcdowell, I talked about a minute ago. I think he's somebody who is priced really low, and so is definitely a viable play. Could definitely be a top 20 car, maybe even better. LaJoy, I don't like as much, but still, I think at that price tag, he's hard to miss. And I like him maybe a little bit more than Alfredo, who, is starting 29th, but hasn't been. He's been a rookie. He very much in the same vein as Briscoe. I think he is a good driver, and I think him and his car will eventually be, better than it is right now, and where they're finishing right now. But I'm not sure it's there yet, so it's a little bit scary to keep playing them. But that's the thing. Like, you see the jump that people take. And sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's half a season, sometimes it's 2 or 3 years. Byron's a perfect example of somebody who, didn't necessarily underperform as equipment, but just wasn't as good as he is now until now. And it took him 3 years to really go from being a top 15 car, around 10th, he was a good finish, to you know, top 5 every week. So it's just something to keep on as we keep going. But again, as I said, I love my plays in this bottom range: Busher, Newman, Priest. And I also like McDowell at that low price tag. I would definitely have a good smattering of. But anyways, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure to post who you think will win. Post that we either miss Keaton or would like me to continue doing the show without him. No, that's a joke. But yeah, make sure if you have any questions about strategy, if you think that Keaton should be, you need Keaton's advice because he's the one that keeps winning stuff on how to actually put my analysis into action, you can tweet at him at JohnGaultJD. You can tweet at me at TRParker10 and at our Pin and Poll account at PinDFS. Thank you so much. Hopefully you have a good day. Hopefully the Xfinity race goes well. Like I said, I have watching on the screen. And yeah, everyone have a great evening and good luck. Bye.